I've already reviewed 4 Ed, Edd and Eddy episodes that fans have been very critical of, but it seems that I still have another handful of episodes to get through that people want me to look at. So I did some digging through other fan reviews, lists, threads, and forums, and came down to 5 particular titles that continuously popped up. There are a couple of other episodes that people may have latched onto more than me, certain episodes featuring the Cankers, half of Season 5, but out of all these lists and discussions that I've seen, these handful of episodes were the ones that regularly got mentioned. So these are the few that I'll be tackling for this video. So I've decided to make this a little countdown video so that way I can go through each and every one of them and talk about them right here and now and not have to do full in-depth reviews on them later on. And for those who are curious, I would say that the episodes I'm about to look at aren't as bad as the other episodes that I've done reviews on already, but I still want to give them a critical analysis. So while they're not as bad as something like If It Smells Like an Ed, or You're Ed Here, Sorry Wrong Ed, or Smile for the Ed, I'm still going to give them a thorough look through. Enough of the build-up, let's just get to the episodes and get this over with. This is my top 5 other bad Ed, Edd and Eddy episodes that I haven't already reviewed. Oh, Season 4, you had a ton of episodes that I really loved. I remember regularly watching the new episodes every Friday when they first aired. Sadly though, it also gave us You're Ed Here, Sorry Wrong Ed, A Case of Ed, and this one. In this episode, Jimmy and Sarah start their own little country club in Ed's backyard. Eddy demands that they find a way to get into there, and so through various failed attempts, they continuously try to get the respect of Jimmy and Sarah. Near the end of the episode, the two let all the other neighborhood kids into their club, mainly because they dressed rich. Aside from Kevin, because screw the Eds, I guess. "Da, comrades, this is classism in action. Class war must happen." Near the end of the episode, everyone decides to let the Eds in, as long as they do work as their butlers. Oh hey, it's like that one scene from Coming to America, except that was just one scene in that whole movie. Not the last 3 minutes of an 11-minute episode. That's probably my biggest gripe with this episode. In my opinion, the ending of the episode just feels a little anticlimactic and a bit stretched out. I actually like the setup that they were going for. The Eds wanting to get into a high society type place through various failed attempts to look high class and fancy. Great idea, but compared to the first half, the ending just feels a little mediocre in my opinion. So because the rest of the episode holds a decent amount of weight, from some funny jokes to a good premise, that's why this episode takes the low bottom spot. Oh, Season 5, how I enjoy you, even though a lot of other fans seem to hate you. Now, when I was going through these fan threads and lists of weak episodes, a lot of Season 5 titles popped up, but only 2 are going to be making this list. And I already covered Smile for the Ed as my least favorite Season 5 episode in its own review. But now, let's get on to Cleanliness is Next to Edness. Here's what you do. You take the plot of Knock Knock Who's Ed, add the torture element from Sorry Wrong Ed, swap out Eddy with Double D, and you get this episode. The plot is Double D trying to find a shower since the one in his house is being renovated, so he goes to various different people to see if he can borrow their shower. Eddy is obviously too stingy to let him borrow his, and he probably doesn't want to take a second dip in Ed's gravy tub, so here's what we get instead. Sarah and Jimmy run a beauty salon, but don't have an open shower until a 3 weeks notice. Rolf not hearing anything because he has potatoes in his ears while he works, and Johnny just says this.
"Johnny, may I use your shower?" "No."
But oh, look at that! Naz lets Double D use her shower, and he doesn't take it because... If it bothers you that much, Double D, why don't you just ask Naz to get rid of all that stuff? Or you could just grow a pair and act like you don't see it while you're in there. But the most interesting thing about this episode is seeing Double D go crazy. Seeing Double D eventually accept defeat and roll in garbage is probably the most entertaining thing in this whole episode.
Shower, shower, shower. 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 Shower, shower, shower.
The other thing that keeps this episode from being any higher on the list is the running gag of Ed apologizing to Eddy for waking him up on a Saturday. It's actually pretty funny, at least to me. But the rest of the episode is just constant dogpiling on Double D for simply wanting a shower, and he just continuously gets harshly punched down on. One thing I noticed while going through other people's retrospectives on this show is that Season 2 seems to be the most loved season, and rightfully so. I mean, there's a lot of episodes that are either close to perfect or just really good. But even with that said, there's still one episode that people seem to say is the worst of the season. This episode involves Eddy's parents leaving him for the night, without telling him. Seems like a pattern we're running into with this show. And Naz comes over to babysit him, while Eddy misconstrues it as a date. Why she's babysitting him when she's probably the same age, maybe a year or two difference? I don't know. While we get some wacky shenanigans with Double D and Ed trying to help Eddy with his date, Naz slowly lets more people into his house. All of this culminates when Ed ends up dropping a giant ice chicken on Eddy while he's in the bathtub, bringing him down through the floor in front of everyone, and then the embarrassing truth comes out.
You have to do what I say. That's what your parents hired me for.
My parents hired you to date me?
Date? They hired me to babysit you, dude.
My two main criticisms with this episode are the humor and the ending, another pattern we seem to be running into. Most of the humor of Eddy thinking that it's a date I would classify as awkward humor, and maybe it's just me, but awkward humor just isn't this show's biggest strong suit. Much like SpongeBob's later seasons with gross-out humor, seeing this show try to do cringe, awkward humor like a sitcom just comes off as more uncomfortable than funny to me. And then you get the ending. Eddy is sent to his room while everyone continues to party in his house, his own friends included. And then he gets his tongue stuck in the door when he's trying to peek outside. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Usually the punishment has to feel justified. Hence why episode endings like Brother Can You Spare an Ed feel perfectly deserved. But here, I don't feel like Eddy's pain or embarrassment feels even remotely justified. Not as frustrating as Smile for the Ed or Sorry Wrong Ed, but man, this episode ending just rubs me, as well as many other fans, the wrong way. Now if you do want an episode where Eddy deserves a comeuppance, this is your episode. This episode's about Double D thinking he has a life-threatening disease because Ed and Eddy lied to him for the sake of a joke. Yes, this could easily be one of the worst things Eddy has ever done this whole show. Sure, Ed played along with it, but to the Big Log's credit, he at least showed remorse when he saw Double D run off crying. But a majority of this episode is Eddy and Ed continuously lying to Double D, making him feel bad by convincing him that he has lackadaisy-cathro disease.
You're quick, right? Hurry, Double D!
A poem on the beauty of life as I know it?
No! Your will! Leave me something nice!
It's okay, audience. Just remember that scene from Big Picture Show where Double D lashes out at him. It makes the scene so much more worth it.
Well, excuse my sincerity for thinking I had lost the only two people I have left in this world.
The one silver lining of this episode is, surprisingly, the ending. After the kids revealed that he's not sick or dying, Double D storms back to the other two Eds and yells at them. And while the other two have been messing with Kevin because he's been grounded all episode, Kevin apparently got out early for good behavior. And just as the duo think they've gotten away scot-free, Double D offers some assistance.
Eddy's spare house key. Oops, how careless of me. I seem to have misplaced it.
No!
Congratulations, episode. You made me compliment Kevin. Hope you're proud of yourself, a case of Ed. Figures that the #1 spot goes to a season 5 episode. But you know what? After rewatching this one, I totally get the hate behind it. This episode is like the Mondo Bizarro version of A Case of Ed. Unlike that one, which was mostly unentertaining but had a satisfying ending, this one has a good setup with a terrible payoff. Jimmy wants to prove to Kevin that fairy tales are real, so the Eds create a scam around that, a safari to find a real unicorn. Things go well at first, but then it's revealed that it's just Double D and Ed in a costume. This breaks Jimmy's heart and turns him into a curmudgeon with a literal rain cloud over his head. So Sarah demands that the Eds fix this. So they try to cheer him up while he's sulking at the playground. Yeah, because we totally didn't do this already with little Ed Blue. Who knows, maybe it was a tribute. So the Eds dress up as a fairy, a mermaid, and... Keemstar? Are Keemstar gnome memes still funny? But oh, then it turns out that it was all just an elaborate ruse to embarrass the Eds once more.
Got the fairy creatures proof, Jimmy?
Whoa! Say, Fluffy, you sure made a believer out of me, dude. I better go spread this with the others at school. They'll sure want to see this.
The thing is, this episode's ending could have worked. An episode with a similar ending that did it way better was Quick Shot Ed from season 1. The Edds got an embarrassing picture leaked to the rest of the kids at the end of that episode, but that felt deserved because the Edds were sneaking around invading people's privacy to get shots of them. But here, and they even say it in the episode, all of this was to get Jimmy's quarter back, and also to make the Edds look foolish.
They were all part of an ingenious, elaborate hoax.
All that for a stupid quarter. How desperate can you get?
I think I found the trope that I can't stand with most of the weaker episodes of this show. Whenever someone is punished undeservedly, most of the time, hell, even in season 5, there's a reason for it, but here, with episodes like these, it's just a forced way to get a conflict going or to end the episode off. And this is just a terrible way to end the episode with such a good premise. The only good thing about this episode that I could recommend is the subplot with Rolf trying to hide his baloney. Believe me, it is the one bright spot you get this entire episode.
It ain't my fault that fairy tale stuff's a load of baloney! Load of baloney! Load of baloney!
Everyone is after Rolf's load of baloney.
That was hopefully my last look at disliked episodes of Ed, Edd, and Eddy. In all seriousness, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break from Ed, Edd, and Eddy, but hopefully when we get back to it, I can finally go back to talking about episodes that I like. As for what I have planned next, I'm going to be doing a review of the Hell of a Boss pilot, so look forward to that when it comes out. Until then, I'm the Media Wiz, because one art form wasn't enough.